Welcome to the Paranormal StakeOut radio TV show with Larry Lawson. As a former career law enforcement officer and law enforcement educator, Larry focuses on the use of tried and true law enforcement investigative techniques in conducting paranormal investigations. Despite his experience and training, Larry also keeps an open mind to discussions on topics that deal with evidence that are not quite as physical in nature. Paranormal StakeOut guests are professionals in the field of the paranormal and parapsychology, conducting the investigations and research needed to further the cause of paranormal study. Larry advocates an agenda of standardization of structure and training in the field of paranormal investigation and research for the purpose of one day being able to produce the evidence needed to convince a jury of the existence of the paranormal. Whether it is ghosts, UFOs, unsolved mysteries, hauntings or cryptids, no topic is beyond the investigative reach of Larry Lawson and the Paranormal StakeOut radio TV show team. Now, here is the host of the Paranormal StakeOut radio TV show, Larry Lawson.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Paranormal Stakeout. I'm your host, Larry Lawson. Welcome you back after, it's been a while, but this is the beginning of season 3, and I'm very excited to be back with everybody here. I hope all's well. It's the Halloween season. What a great time to come back. And got a great guest tonight, and I think you'll enjoy it. But he's going to be one of a string of guests that you're going to see over the number of episodes that we do. Folks that are going to really tantalize your interest in the paranormal, maybe get you interested in doing some research and joining us on some investigations. So with that, I'd like to introduce my guest. His name is John PRINK. John is from New York City. He was a cop over 29 years, 29-year career. He was a police officer, a deputy sheriff, a deputy coroner. We'll talk about that a little bit. Detective and criminal investigator, both coasts, from New York City all the way over to San Francisco area, California. But prior to being a law enforcement officer, he spent time serving our country in the United States Coast Guard. So we thank him for our service. He retired in 2015 from the law enforcement field, moved down here to Florida about 2016, and actually got himself interested in the paranormal by connecting with a group and doing a paranormal investigation. And some of those we're going to hear about today. John's also spent some time doing some acting, some modeling, and some other radio work. So with that, I'd like to introduce my guest, John PRINK. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So you're my first guest for season 3, and I'm very excited about it because you have some really, really interesting stories. So I'd like to introduce my audience to you. Tell them, who is John PRINK? Where do you hail from? How'd you get interested in this field?
Oh, wow. Well, I'm a New York City native, born and raised. I think the first time I was actually involved in something that was sort of paranormal, I was about 5 or 6 years old. I lived in these apartments that were old UN housing out of Lake Success, New York. It was in the Queens, borough of Queens. Mm-hmm. And I remember as a kid, I talk about this, I'm writing a book right now, and I talk about this in my book, how I always sensed that there was something going on in my apartment. I don't know what it was. And, when you're a little kid, you don't necessarily have info. Nobody tells you what a ghost is. Nobody says, this is what it is, and this is what you're going to say. You have no idea. And I remember being in my bedroom at night, and there was always an apparition that came into my bedroom. I didn't know if it was my mom or my dad. It could have been, but it didn't appear like it was. It appeared something different than that. I mean, I knew what my mom and dad looked like, obviously, but I wasn't sure exactly what it was, and I didn't know why it was there. And then you fast forward, several years, and the first experience with death, I would say, that I had was my grandmother passed away at the age of 54 from cancer, right? I'm 9 years old at this point, and didn't quite understand that grandma wasn't coming back. They say she passed away. Where did she pass away to? It was a question I always had. I had no idea what that meant, passing away. I just knew that she wasn't with us anymore. I understood died. And then we fast forward even a few more years. Now I move into a house that was one of the WPA projects built in the late 1930s on potato fields on Long Island, New York.
Okay.
And growing up in that house, there was an element inside that house that it couldn't be explained to me initially. And I understood through some research throughout the years that someone had committed suicide in the house, in the attic, had hung themselves.
Mhm.
And this kind of, I was trying to understand what was going on. There was a part in my house. I had a room in the basement. Okay. We lived in a very, very small house. My parents could only afford to build me a room in the basement. So up until about like 11 or 12 years old, I was sharing a room with my sister. So when my parents built this room, they built this room in the basement, and it was about half of the house underneath the house. Well, there was a portion of the basement when you came down the stairs. It was a little like reading area, hallway kind of a thing, and one half went into my room, the other half went into the other side of the basement where the washer, dryer, and boiler and all that stuff was, in the furnace. And there was a pattern on the floor that was always in the shape of an H. It was on the cement, and it was on the tile when they put the tile down on the floor, and then it
Mhm.
came through the carpeting when they put that down. We replaced the carpeting multiple times, and it was always this H pattern. And I never quite understood what was going on, but every time I walked and I stood in that H pattern, there was a chill that came over my body. And it wasn't until a few years later because I moved into this room when I'm like, 11, 12 years old. It wasn't until I was about 17, 18, getting through high school, and then having all this information about this person hung himself in the attic at a house, that I understood that when I'm standing in that H pattern on the floor and look straight up, it's directly over the eave where a piece of rope was found in the house where this man apparently hung himself. So my thinking is, okay, is this the shadow effect of a body hanging? I didn't understand that. I figured it could be. Well, many years later, fast forwarding into my coroner's job, when I was a deputy sheriff, I was assigned to a coroner's bureau out in California. That is exactly what I would see when I was looking at a body, and I would look under the body. It was sort of an H pattern from the shadowing of
Interesting.
lighting. Yeah, it was really, really creepy. It was really creepy. But there was all sorts of stuff. We would hear noise in the house. I would hear banging. It was pretty
Mhm.
typical. Um, Voices as if someone knew something. Because sometimes I was at the house by myself, and I was an older teenager. My parents would leave us alone if they went out to dinner. But I would always hear something going on in the house, and I could never quite explain what it was until I got this information from the neighbors that this had transpired in the house. And it was sometime during the late 50s, maybe the early 1960s. And my understanding was that this gentleman was one of the architects who designed there was like maybe a half a dozen
Yeah.
floor plans, right? So this was one of the guys. He purchased a house. He designed it himself, but he purchased a house. And I remember talking to my next door neighbor. There were two brothers that lived next door to us, and they were the builders. They were part of the contracting team that actually built the houses. So they were the ones
Yeah.
that explained this to me, and they described how this guy was dressing inside the house when he lived in the neighborhood, and it was exactly who I had envisioned. Now I don't know if I'm psychic. I don't know. Maybe I'm psychic as a rock.
I was gonna
I,
ask you that
I
question,
yeah.
if you realized you had any, abilities.
I I must have something, because I remember describing what I thought I was seeing inside the house, and it was a man probably in his 40s, white shirt, black pants, close, cropped haircut, and eyeglasses, black plastic frames like somebody would have worn in the 1950s or 1960s. And when I
Mhm.
described that person, the neighbors were like, "Whoa, that's the guy that lived in the house." And I was like, it blew my mind because I'd never met this person. I didn't know who he was. Had no idea anything about what this guy might even look like. And I'm
Mhm.
describing what I'm envisioning, and that's what they're telling me. They're kind of confirming what I was thinking. So I mean, that was like sort of like the second probably scary thing that happened to me. The first was like when I was a kid living in the apartment. The second scary one was my house. And of course, I grew up in that house. I lived in that house
Mm,
from the time I was like 9 to 19 when I
okay.
went in the Coast Guard, when I went to boot camp. Um, Following my military service, I got out. I became a transit police officer in New York City. So I was going to the academy, and I lived in this apartment that was built. I found out it was built, I think, in like 1931.
Mhm.
And I talk about this in my book extensively, but just to give you the brief synopsis of it, I believe that there was a child running around in the house. It was a 2-story walk-up building with 2 apartments on each floor.
Okay.
My apartment on the second floor was kind of unique because all of the apartments were actually 1-bedroom apartments, but mine was unique because at some point, I don't know when, but at some point they took the bedroom from the apartment in the front of the building and gave it to my apartment, making mine a 2-bedroom and turning that one from a 1-bedroom to a studio.
Mhm.
And yeah, so we had this extra bedroom, and I used to use this bedroom I had a buddy of mine living in this bedroom for a little while till he moved out, and then I used the bedroom as a workout room. I had my weights in there, and was just kind of my desk was in there with storage. It wasn't really anything special, but I would always hear when I was in there working out, I would always hear noise coming from the hallway, and the door was like to go out of the apartment was right there, like within like 10 feet. I'd open the door and it sounded like somebody was running up and down the stairs. This is you figure a typical New York City building where you had the buzzer that you pushed on the door and we would buzz you in.
Sure.
Right. So I would hear the bell ringing occasionally, or I would hear the door just opening and closing and slamming. And then
Well,
I would hear running in the hallway up and down the stairs, and there's nobody there. Nobody there at
did you
all.
were you ever able to determine who this might have been, or did you see anything?
I did. And when we first moved into the apartment, we had all sorts of issues with paint running off the walls when we first painted it, lighting coming on. Like my wife and I at the time would leave the apartment, go to dinner, go out, or whatever, turn all the lights off. We come on, all the lights around the apartment. I'm thinking somebody might have broke in or the landlord's messing around. No, it wasn't anything like that. And we would notice certain things were out of place. One day I'm in the kitchen getting ready to go to the academy. We used to go to the academy in shifts, and it was one of the days when I was working a 4 to 12. So it's early, mid-morning, just before I'm getting ready to get on the train to go into Manhattan to go to the academy. And I'm sitting at the kitchen table, cup of coffee, and I'm reading my homework for our lessons for the day. Over the kitchen sink were old wooden doors that had plexiglass, inserts in them. Well, one of the doors opens up, and I catch it out of my eye. I see the door open up. I was like, what is that? And a couple of wine glasses come out, and they were in the back behind other glasses. These glasses come out, they hang for a second in midair and drop into the sink and shatter. And I'm like, well, what is going on? I'm going, okay, poltergeist. I got something going on in here that is just trying to get my attention. Well, with all this activity going on, I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be like a child or something with the running up and down the hallway. And
And I got to put you on hold here because we got to take our first break for a second. But when we come back, one of the things that I'd like to chat with you about is how often did this occur from the time you were a young child and now you're into the police academy? Did this happen continually during your life during this period?
only in the places where only in these three locations where I lived. Yeah, it wasn't like an everyday thing. There were periods of time where years had gone by where I didn't experience anything. But when I did experience something, it was dramatic.
And we're gonna talk a lot more about that because you've got some really interesting stories, and I particularly want to know if you've had anything happen, and I already know the answer to this, while you're on the job. Folks, we're going to go ahead and take our first breaks. Hang with us, Paranormal Stakeout. My guest tonight, John PRINK. See you on the other side of this commercial.
Welcome to Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson. Indian River County is an idyllic vacation spot on Florida's east coast, not far south of Cape Canaveral. Known as part of the state's famed Treasure Coast, many are unaware of the deep and fascinating history this area played in the development of the Sunshine State. Also lost among its visitors and residents are the chilling stories of the hauntings that accompany this rich history. It is here that a man named Waldo still looks after his family and properties, 6 decades after his death. Or a retired preacher is seen digging up his hidden treasure, days after he died. Larry Lawson spent more than 40 years in the law enforcement and criminal justice education profession. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Nova Southeastern University and a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University. He serves on the board of directors of the Indian River County Historical Society, is the director of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and is the owner of Indian River Hauntings, LLC, where he provides historical and paranormal tours and events. He has been actively researching the history and paranormal legends of the Treasure Coast of Florida since 2010. Larry is currently the host of Paranormal StakeOut radio TV show on the Exozone Broadcast Network and the past host of Encounters with the Other Side on WPSL Radio in Fort Pierce, Florida. Pre-order your copy of Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson on Amazon.com today.
And we are back with my guest tonight, John PRINK. Interesting stuff. Now, I've talked to many people who explain their first experiences with the paranormal were as a child. I didn't. I did not have anything happen to me when I was a youngster, but you did. Do you think, A, you were given a gift, or do you think that young people in particular just have the ability to have a more open mind and see it? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's actually both. My recollection of it is that it was I couldn't explain it. That's about the only answer I could come up with. I knew something was happening. I was intuitive enough, smart enough to know that something was going on, but I just couldn't answer it because I didn't have any answers. And I remember, I don't remember actually talking to my parents about it. Because I didn't want them to think I was a crazy kid, so I never really said anything about it. And it wasn't until I was a teenager that I started explaining stuff to my mom and dad, say, hey, there's something going on in this house. And they just kind of blew it off. I don't think that they, gave any credence to it. I just don't think that they believed it one way or the other. But I do believe that kids can be susceptible to visits, from the other side, more so than I think adults are. And I think it's because adults get, once you grow up, you get experience and you get skeptical. But kids don't have that. They don't. Then when you see these kids are talking to their imaginary friend, maybe they're actually talking to somebody. Maybe something's really going on there.
And there's been thousands of experiences along those lines also. So now you're in the police academy for the New York City Transit Police, which now is part of the regular
NYPD. Correct. Yep.
Any experiences as you graduate the academy? Any experiences as a young cop that you couldn't explain? That funny feeling like, don't stop this car right now, or wait for your partner to get there before you go into the bill. Anything?
Well, I was going to finish that one story real quick because I did have an experience in that apartment that led me to believe that there is actually something. That solidified it for me that there was actually something on the other side, and it was the first actual experience I had with a not only a full-blown apparition, but where I was actually touched and I felt it. In that same apartment, I'm not sure the time. It was sometime along when I was working as a cop, so I might have been like 6 months or a year into it. Sleeping in bed one night, I'm sleeping. I'm facing a closet door. I wake up, and the closet door opens by itself, and out of the closet comes this little girl, a little girl dressed in period like 1920s, 1930s clothing, which would fit because the apartment was built in 31. So she comes up and she's walking up to me, not floating. It was like she was actually like walking to me. And I could see her hand come out and her hand touched mine. And when her hand touched mine, I felt it. And I remember jumping up, startled, screaming, like, what did I just experience? My wife woke up. She goes, what's going on? And I told her what happened. And she says, yeah, I've been experiencing the same thing with this, whatever it is, with this little girl. And that for me was like a defining moment. I was just like, okay, there's something out there. And I always had this interest in it, but I never experienced anything when I was on the job in New York. I worked in Brooklyn and working the trains. I never experienced anything. Occasionally we'd get a DOA on the train or somebody would get hit by a train, as sad as that is. But outside of, making a notification, we didn't really do too much in assisting. As in patrol, we would call emergency services and they would come and get the body, or you would just call for, EMS. They would come and take the body to the hospital. You might go to the hospital, get the guy's effects or something. We didn't really get too far into it, because at that point, then the ME's office would come and take the body from there. So it weren't homicides that I dealt with when I was there. It would have mainly been just natural death or someone hit by a train. It wasn't until I moved to California, where I was working in a small municipality, the Oakland Hills, a city of Piedmont. And that agency, I got the opportunity. There was a lot of elderly people living in that city. So, occasionally somebody would expire. You'd have to go up to the house, notify the coroner. The coroner would come out, take the body. It was not anything, anything weird or anything paranormal in that respect. It wasn't until I signed on to, I had applied for, when I got to I was at the sheriff's office up in Solano County, which is a Northern California county. It's right next to Napa County, between Oakland and Sacramento, to kind of give you a reference point. It's an agricultural county, good county to work for. Had a great time up there. Spent just over about 11 years in the county working as a deputy. But the deputy sheriffs in California, out of the 58 or so counties that are in California, they run a sheriff coroner concept. And there's all sorts of variations of it, but in our county, the deputies were actually the deputy coroners as well. So you were a regular deputy sheriff, arm, badge, gun, the whole big thing, and you worked as a deputy coroner as well. So you would go out to whatever scene you had, handle business. And one night I had a call of a car accident, and I get out, and California Highway Patrol, famous Chippies, the Chips, CHP, they're out there. Guy it's a DOA. He's deader than a doornail from this crash. Put the toe tag on. I put the guy in a body bag. I get him back to the morgue. I have his personal effects now. So what I'm getting ready to do is just run down to the property room, drop these personal effects off, and then I was going to go back and I was going to take fingerprints and photograph the body for the pathologist the next morning, in case he came in and wanted to do an autopsy.
Right.
So we had a removal team that we hired. These two guys, we contracted with a company. So they came, they picked the body up, they brought him into the morgue and ran him into the cooler. It was a big room. It wasn't typical, like, most people think, where the drawers that slide out of a wall. We didn't have that. We actually had just an actual room that had shelves, like racks, and we had basically like a forklift that we would pick the bodies up and stack them. Well, this guy, the removal team had just brought him in and put him on the gurney, and he was in the cooler. I walked down the hallway, did the property thing, and then I started hearing noises. Now, you got to remember, I'm the only coroner, the only deputy coroner in the entire county. There's 100,000 people or so living in this county. I'm the only guy on the job, one coroner. Yeah, right. So it's the middle of the night. There's nobody in the coroner's office except me. It's 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. I thought that maybe the noises I was hearing, and it was possible that the back wall, one wall of the coroner's office, also backed up to the kitchen of the jail, which was basically behind us, and the actual county jail. So it could have been inmates yelling. I'm thinking, but it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. It'd probably be too early for these guys to be up preparing breakfast. I don't know. But I'm hearing noises. I figured, well, it's just the inmates, doing what they do, being inmates. Well, I'm still hearing this noise. I come out of the property room and I look down this long hallway, and there's a series of offices. There's a couple of labs and a tissue room and this and that. And then there's the stainless steel door to the morgue that has a glass window on it. As I look down into this window, in the window is a full body apparition. I mean, it's just there. It's like as if there's someone standing there. It's not a shadow. It looks solid to me. I'm thinking, we wore black uniforms on patrol. So I'm thinking, it's night, I'm tired. Maybe one of the deputies came in, is screwing around, or maybe it was one of the removal guys that was forgotten something, and he was, because they wore, basically a black coat and tie kind of a thing, to look professional. I thought maybe it might have been one of them. As I'm walking down this hallway is, 50 feet, 60 feet long before you pass by these other doors and before you actually get to that door. And inside is an autopsy suite. There's a X-ray room on one side, and you got to go through the entire autopsy suite before you get to another stainless steel door with a window on it. That is actually the cooler, the morgue room, basically. I see this thing, and I'm walking down the hallway towards it. I'm like, oh, I want to see this, because I'm thinking, here I got my first full blown apparition. I'm psyched, you know. I start walking down there, and it suddenly dissipates. It just disappears, and I was like, no way. I open that door. I walk into the morgue, and I look through the morgue, and I see the same thing in the morgue door. Okay, and I'm like, all right, there's something here. There's something going on here. I walk to that door. I pop that door open, and it suddenly disappears. That door slams behind me. And it's not a problem because we can get out, obviously. But that door, it was just kind of weird how it slammed behind me. And there was a sense inside that room that there was somebody either standing behind me or right next to me. And it was just a really weird, creepy feeling. The hair on my neck was standing up when I had hair. And I was feeling, all right, I'm experiencing something. This is going on. Okay, let's take this as far as we can take this. But I wanted confirmation. I reopened that body bag to make sure, because maybe that guy was declared dead at the scene, but maybe he's not really dead. I don't know. I unzipped that bag, and that guy is dead. He's definitely dead. Okay. I zipped the bag back up, and I'm going to go out of the cooler, and I still feel this presence behind me. I walked back down that hallway to go back into the property room to make sure that I got, make sure I put everything where it was supposed to be locked up, this guy's personal effects. And the only thing I could come up with was, maybe this guy didn't realize that he was dead. Maybe he was like, hey, what are you doing with my stuff? Why am I here? What's going on? So here I am talking to nobody. I'm trying to explain it away, saying, hey, dude, yeah, you're really dead. You were killed in a car crash, and I'm just putting your personal effects away, so that I'm actually explaining this to somebody I think is there, but there's nobody there. And in the rest of the morning, it was like, 5 o'clock in the morning at this point. I'm still typing up my report. I'm ready to go grab some breakfast. And I had to work the next day, too. I was working a 7 to 5 shift, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift. So I had to be up all day. And I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And every once in a while, I would go back into the cooler and unzip that bag and double check. I must have did it a few times. And I'm like, no, this guy is definitely dead. I'm like, but it was a creepy experience. So much so that I had explained it to an organization I was working with. I was working with a paranormal group called Blood Moon Paranormal. They were out of Orlando. And Connie, the lady that runs it, I explained this to her. I was telling her all about it. Lo and behold, she sends me a email and says, hey, I pitched your story to a Canadian television station, and they're interested in it. They want to, do something. They want to film it. I'm like, hey, that's cool. So I wrote an episode, and I explained exactly from start to finish what happened, and I sent it over to them. They bought the idea, and I was on an episode in 2018, filmed in Miami, of Paranormal Emergency. It was kind of fun too, because the guy that they had that was up in Canada that played me in the story was actually this bald guy with a goatee and glasses and whatnot. Had the same kind of coroner coat that I had. I don't know how they found this guy that looked like me, but they did.
Did he have hair?
No, he had no hair. I had no hair at the time either. I was, I've been bald like this for 20 years, at least 25 years. I started shaving my head when I was losing it. I'm Italian, so it's like on my mother's side, and that's what happens with the hair. It goes. And I was like, nah, I'm done. It's like, you get that to where it starts to recede back, and you're like, yeah, I'm done with this. It's like, I've had enough of it.
So getting back to the coroner's office, did you share this story with anybody else you worked with? And had anybody else said, yeah, I had something happen to me? Anything like that at all?
I didn't at all. No, I kept that one to myself. I really did. I don't imagine that there were, maybe there were people in the coroner's office that were having other experiences like that. I mean, it's entirely possible, but nobody ever shared anything. Yeah. In my book, I go into multiple cases that I worked that stuck with me. We had, it was a small county, but we still had somewhere between 12 and 1,300 deaths a year. And the homicide rate varied, depending on the city. But high suicide rate, high SIDS death rate. I started questioning myself too with that, because at one point during my career in the coroner's office, I started having a lot of SIDS deaths, and not being able to explain what was going on. I actually put myself through a child abuse, and it was a combined child abuse sexual assault investigation class down in Riverside, California. And I went to that was like a week-long class, just so I could get some more knowledge on,
Mhm.
what happens with kids. But I talk about a lot of that in my book, about a lot of
Okay.
cases like
And
that.
and we'll hear more about your book. Right now, we're getting ready to hit our next break. I want to talk a little bit about the teams that you were involved in, some of the differences, and some of your thoughts about what this entire phenomenon really is. So,
Okay.
folks, stay with us. We're about to ready to take this next break, so stay with us, and we'll see you in just a few minutes with my guest today, John Prink. Be right back.
All right.
Are you ready to dive into the mysteries of the unknown? Tune into the electrifying X Zone radio TV show hosted by the one and only Rob McConnell.
I'm Rob McConnell, and get ready for a mind-bending journey through the unexplained phenomenon that surrounds us all. From UFO encounters to cryptids, ghosts, and everything in between, we've got it covered here in the X Zone.
Rob McConnell, the seasoned investigator and renowned radio personality, brings you the most compelling interviews with top experts, authors, and experiencers from around the world. Each episode is an unforgettable exploration into the depths of the extraordinary.
That's right, X Zone Nation. Join me every week as we open the door to the supernatural and explore the strange and amazing stories that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew.
And it's not just radio anymore. With our groundbreaking TV show, you can now witness the sessions unfold right before your eyes. From chilling reenactments to captivating visuals, prepare yourself for a multimedia experience like never before.
With a legacy spanning over 2 decades, the X Zone Radio and TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, is your ultimate source for mind-blowing entertainment and thought-provoking discussions. Join our growing community of truth seekers as we continue to unlock the world's mysteries.
So, why wait? Step into the X Zone and embark on a journey that will challenge your beliefs, ignite your curiosity, and keep you on the edge of your seat.
Remember, X Zone Nation, the truth is out there, and it's waiting for you right here on the X Zone Radio and TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell. Don't miss a minute of the action.
Tune in now on your favorite radio station or visit xzoneradiotv.com to join the adventure. The X Zone Radio TV show with Rob McConnell, where reality meets the unknown.
The X Zone Radio TV show, unraveling the secrets of the universe, one episode at a time. For more information, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com.
And we are back for the next segment. And John, you've had a really interesting career. In that last story, that last story is very interesting. I got to ask this question: any possibilities, reflections were in play? Maybe overtired? Any chance of any of that at all in what you saw or experienced?
I don't think so. No, I don't think
Okay.
so. Everything was very, very real, and it was.
Mhm.
I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that my mind was open to it at the point. I was never skeptical of anything like that.
Mhm.
I don't believe we have the answers to everything. So I was
Mhm.
never skeptical of it.
Well, I noticed that you didn't really start investigating formally, if you will, with the team until you got to Florida about 2015 or so. Got that?
I,
Have I got that?
well, yeah, true, but I had one investigation I did right after I retired in 2015. I
Mhm.
wanted to explore more with
Mhm.
paranormal investigations, and I went on one investigation with a group. I can't even remember their name now. This is like just 10 years ago, but we investigated in Alameda, California, an old Elks Lodge.
Mhm.
And there were several murders in there. There were several deaths, unexplained deaths in there. And I went through with this team. There was there had to be 10 or 15 people on this team. They broke us up, and I went with this gal that was running it. Her and I paired up, and she was showing me the ropes, basically EVPs, the cameras and stuff that they had, just all kinds of interesting equipment at the time, right? And I didn't really know what all that stuff was. And I think a lot of this is prior to a lot of the TV shows that you see on there now, where now you see how people do it. But prior to that, there wasn't anything like that. And I went through this Elks Lodge, and I think that was the very, very first, say, formal investigation that I went on. But true, I didn't really start to get into it and gain momentum until I moved here to Florida. And I moved to Florida about a year after I retired in 2016, initially up in Gainesville area. And I was looking for a team, and there wasn't really much in the area, but there was one in Orlando that I got involved with, and it was Blood Moon Paranormal. And I went on multiple investigations with them, just countless. And it was all residential, all residential investigations. Yeah.
And I do very few residentials myself, but let me ask you a question, because I constantly, very commonly, I get requests from folks, are you looking for folks to join your team? What did you do to connect, just so that other folks are hearing?
Magic of Facebook. The magic of Facebook, actually. I started researching on Facebook. I mean, what do? Do you look in the newspaper or the, you don't look in the yellow pages for paranormal investigator. And it's just, I found these folks on Facebook, and I reached out to Connie and told her a little bit about myself and what I wanted to do. And she was like, oh yeah, she was fired up. So I went and worked with her. I'm a member of the team. I just haven't worked with them in a number of years. Mainly because I wanted to get out of the residential investigation stuff. And I wanted to do, after seeing a lot of stuff on television, basically, I wanted to get into the commercial end of things, and I ended up doing that when
what do you mean by the commercial end of things?
Just like a place like Waverly, like I would like to go into like a hospital like situation like that, or a jail, or you know what I mean, just like
commercial buildings.
Commercial buildings. Basically. Yeah.
Historical spots. Okay, I see.
Yeah. And I ended up getting involved with a gal by the name of Nicole Trebelsi, and she was running Unveiling Paranormal. She changed the name to Elemental Voice Paranormal, which we currently are. She was down in South Florida, and her and I, the first investigation I went on with her was the Train Museum in Miami, which is an absolute blast. That place that's haunted. That is definitely haunted. I mean, when we get down there and look at that place again, you'll know. I know you'll talk a little bit about that, I guess. But that place is definitely haunted. And then I went up to Lake Worth with her to a playhouse in Lake Worth, and I did that. I actually did, the Lake Worth Playhouse. I actually did that twice, and each time it didn't disappoint. There's something going on inside the Lake Worth Playhouse as well. So then she had moved to South Carolina, and she's handling part of it up there with a team up there, and I'm down here in Florida I was trying to do my own thing, but it's not coming off like I thought it would. I'm just not able to put it together. So I started branching out. I said, well, maybe I'll look into an established team, which is what led me to contact you and see if I could, at least be a guest investigator, if nothing else, to get out there. And I wanted to check out some more locations around Florida, whatever you need me for.
Well, so let's talk about the teams for a second. You've been a part of two. We've actually investigated with three now. Differences and similarities between them. And their philosophies. And what I'm trying to get at is, it seems to me that everybody has a different reason for doing this and a different procedure, if you will, on how to find the answers. What are the differences and similarities between these teams you've seen so far?
Differences mainly is equipment. I'm very basic. I tend to go out with a flashlight, put my hands in my pockets, and just walk around and see what I feel, see what feels creepy. If I don't get an immediate like creep out feeling when I walk into a room, I step out and I go to another room. I stay quiet. I don't generally talk to anybody. Some of the people I was working with on some of the other teams are very boisterous. They yell, they scream, some are quiet. Some will sit in a room in a corner and just see what happens. They don't acknowledge anybody. They don't, talk to anybody. They don't do anything. I tend to, like I said, just walk around and kind of get a feel for the place first and see what I think the hot spots, and then I ask the staff or the owners of a home basically, where are the hot spots? Where do you think something's going on?
Mhm.
And if they tell me, I'll focus on a certain room. Uh, Otherwise, I'll bring a camera with me, just a very simple video cam, and I have caught stuff on that. Um, and I'll just set it up and I leave it. I don't touch
Okay.
it.
So
Uh,
you're not really an equipment guy. You don't like all the
uh,
gadgets.
I do. I actually do. I think they're great because now when I'm working with Elemental Voice Paranormal, we had the one thing that I really liked was the ghost bell. I thought that
Mhm.
that was interesting because it's a
What is that?
it's basically like a hotel, an old fashioned hotel bell, just a little round
Mhm.
chrome bell with a button on top.
Mhm.
And anytime someone gets near it and they ding it, right, somebody must be there because it's a mechanical thing. It's not electronic, not an electronic gizmo in that respect. It's more of a mechanical thing. Something has to actually touch it to make the sound. So
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, so I like that. But I do. I'm not opposed to equipment at all. I mean, I welcome anything. Yeah,
Okay.
because I don't know. I
Go
don't know
back
if it's
go
good.
back to the spell for a second. So, you've got some piece of equipment, REM pod, that will go off if something breaks
REM pod. Yep.
the ball of energy that it puts out. Uh, K2 meters, millimeters, all react to something in the air. But you're telling me the bell, which I've seen, but I have not used, it physically somebody has to hit it, is what you're telling me.
So I would, yeah. Somebody,
Okay.
I had one at the first time I ever used one was in Miami at the train museum, and we're
Okay.
sitting in the presidential car, last used by Reagan, as I recall, and we're sitting in the dining room section of this train car, asking questions. Who's here? This, that. I'm John. Can you come and talk to me? And we were asking questions, just random questions. I can't even remember what they were at this point, but just random questions. One for yes, two for no, and we were getting responses to the bell, similar to like what you would get if you're trying to record with an EVP, on a
Mhm.
recorder. How you would get a
Mhm.
response. That's the responses that I was getting, and I was like, I like this thing. This thing is actually kind of cool, and we just used it, and it worked out great. Even used it
Okay.
in the Lake Worth Playhouse. We had
Okay.
had amazing responses with it. Yeah.
So what's your two-part question here? First of all, what's your goal? What are you looking for when you investigate? What is your purpose for investigating? Maybe is a better way to say it.
I like the feel of it. I like being able to contact who's ever on the other side if they can. If they have questions, maybe we can give them answers. I like
Mhm.
to be able to prove one way or the other that there's something there. A lot of folks that think that they have something in their house or that there's something in a building. Um,
Mhm.
I want to be able to help them out and try to find answers for them. Kind
Okay.
of can confirm their suspicions. What
So in
they think. I
so
was
in
gonna say
finding
just
the yeah.
yeah, the
Go
answers.
go ahead. Yeah, so in finding the answers, you've got to collect. What do we do as cops?
Evidence.
We collect evidence. Do you collect the evidence? Do you do anything with the evidence? Do you compare the evidence, or what do you do with the evidence you find at an investigation?
It usually, if when I was giving it to Nicole or over to Connie, usually they would post it up on Facebook and
Mhm.
or YouTube. They would
Mhm.
post whatever they photos,
Mhm.
video, EVPs. Those three things I think were the main thing that we would put up there for the public to check out and say, hey,
Sure.
there's something there. So yeah,
But do you ever use evidence from one investigation and compare it with another investigation at all to maybe try and find some similarities or anything like that?
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Typically, yeah. Typically, yeah. I mean, I'm starting to see uh, similarities in every investigation that I go on. Not only the shadow figure, a full blown apparition, a mist,
Mhm.
um, the orbs that we see floating around. Especially the voice phenomenon. I find the most fascinating. Actually, being able to talk to somebody and getting an intelligent answer when you ask a question. Be it
That's
whether
yeah,
it,
I
yeah,
agree.
whether it's angry or not. Yeah. I
So
find that the most fascinating.
what is this, John? What is it that we're looking for? What do you think it is? What's your philosophy about What
I think when we leave the physical world, we probably step into another plane, and a fourth dimension, a fifth dimension. I don't. And we even talked about this too. The idea of frequency. I remember you and I having a conversation about that. Are we radio receivers? It's just like, that sparks something I'm thinking about it going, oh my God, now I got to get a tinfoil hat and put the tinfoil hat on, maybe I'll pick up some, but seriously, no, there's something out there that we don't have the answer to, and we won't know the answer to until we get there, which is unfortunately too late because we can't relay it back to, this side of the world unless someone asks a question. But yeah, there's something out there. I don't think we know what it all is. I don't think we have all the answers yet. And I think as time goes on and our technology gets a little bit better, we're going to be able to find those answers, I think, a little bit easier. I mean, even now, just look in the last, 10 years or so, with all the equipment that's out there and what investigators are using compared to, say, a century ago when they used to have seances, they didn't have the technology we have now. They only know what they heard or saw.
But are we using the technology to get better, or are we just reinventing the same old stuff? That's a question that I have.
I don't think so. I think it's for confirmation more than anything. 100%. I mean, if you're hearing something but you can't hear it with your naked ear, but a piece of equipment that you have can,
Agreed.
and it validates what you've got going on, and when it validates what you're trying to do, it's not, we're not making this up as we're going along.
And I agree.
Yeah.
I guess my issue is, it confirms something's going on, but we still don't know exactly what it is going on.
Right. I just don't know what happens on the other side, but I do believe that there are things as portals. 100% with mirrors.
Okay.
And I was I've seen Cindy Kaza twice live doing a show in Orlando. My wife and I went, and she was talking about scrying, like staring into a mirror and just letting your mind go. And then she's talking about her automatic writing. Right. Yeah. And there's something to that. Is there a possibility that a window or, a mirror is a portal? Yeah.
It could be. And I got to interrupt you because we're about ready to take our last break for the show. So hang with us. Got some more questions to ask. Folks, stay with me. My guest, John PRINK. We'll see the other side of this commercial break. Thanks.
Welcome to Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson. Indian River County is an idyllic vacation spot on Florida's east coast, not far south of Cape Canaveral. Known as part of the state's famed Treasure Coast, many are unaware of the deep and fascinating history this area played in the development of the Sunshine State. Also lost among its visitors and residents are the chilling stories of the hauntings that accompany this rich history. It is here that a man named Waldo still looks after his family and properties, 6 decades after his death. Or a retired preacher is seen digging up his hidden treasure, days after he died. Larry Lawson spent more than 40 years in the law enforcement and criminal justice education profession. He holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Nova Southeastern University and a master's degree in public administration from Troy State University. He serves on the board of directors of the Indian River County Historical Society, is the director of the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigation, and is the owner of Indian River Hauntings, LLC, where he provides historical and paranormal tours and events. He has been actively researching the history and paranormal legends of the Treasure Coast of Florida since 2010. Larry is currently the host of Paranormal StakeOut radio TV show on the Exozone Broadcast Network and the past host of Encounters with the Other Side on WPSL Radio in Fort Pierce, Florida. Pre-order your copy of Haunted Indian River County by Larry Lawson on Amazon.com today.
we're back. Boy, this hour's gone fast, John.
It is.
Interesting stories. But I want to talk a little bit about the future of the field, and the thing that really I think brought it to the front of the public's eye was the TV shows, the radio, mostly the TV shows. It started with Ghost Hunters way back with Jason
Mhm.
Grant, but actually goes back a little bit further with that to some of there was a show with Leonard Nimoy years ago. England had one, Most Haunted, I think, for a while.
Yep.
And into the 2008, 9, 10, up until recently, it's how most people got interested. And it certainly brought our field to the front. It was no longer something taboo to talk about. For example, when I came on the job, I'm sure it was the same with you. You just didn't talk about your experiences.
No, you didn't
But
mention it.
but today it's pretty common. But the TV shows themselves, do you see a waning interest in them? I
Um,
read an article not too long ago where that was a topic, and I would like to hear your thoughts on it.
Up until probably a couple of years ago, I actually did a segment with Dave Schrader on the Paranormal 60. And we talked about that. I mean, it was a kind of a topic of discussion that came up. And I ended up, I'm thinking that it kind of died on the vine for a little while, for lack of a better phrase, where things mellowed out. I think the television networks got a little bored with it because it was, after a while, it was the same old. It's like just
Yep.
a different group of people doing the same thing, basically. And the locations where they were going, Waverly comes to mind. It's one of the bigger ones that I would love to go to and investigate. But how many paranormal investigation teams have been at Waverly? I don't know, countless, right? And it's
Yeah.
been televised. So I think for a while there it got a little tiresome. And then lo and behold, one of the networks that I've been watching, Beacon TV, has new ghost programs on there. So I started to watch them again. There's been new ones coming out. I think there's a renewed interest in it. I mean, I'd like to think so. I hope so. I mean, even if there isn't, I mean, it's not going to prevent me from doing what I want to do. It's not going to stop me from investigating. I'll still do it as long as I can.
I don't. Yeah, I don't think it's going to stop folks like us who
No, I
are
don't
looking
think so
for
either.
answers from doing it. But the entertainment end of it, I find it. Is it waning? I don't know. I think maybe it is because a lot of the networks have canceled the shows, or have not renewed them, or are moving on to other things. I don't know. I just see a lull in it now. Now I say that, but I've been doing tours here in Vero Beach and Sebastian and out in Fellsmere, Florida for years, and every time I think it's about ready to die off, it just picks right back up. So
No.
I don't know the answer to that. But you did bring up something interesting that I also want to get your opinion on. Waverly Hills. There's places that a lot of the TV shows have gone to over the
Mhm.
years, and some of them ad nauseum. Can you fish one of those places out, for lack of a better way to say it? In other words, can you do so many investigations at Waverly Hill that suddenly you're not getting anything?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's possible. I don't think it's
Okay.
possible. I think there's so much activity going on. I mean, further to the point, then why do some people have the same experiences in all these places that they go to, or similar
Well,
experiences?
I
Right.
don't doubt that, but
I don't think you
Go
can
ahead.
fish it out. I
Okay.
really don't. Yeah, I believe that the activity is there. It's there, and I think you'll always find something. Sometimes you get luckier than other times. Sometimes I've gone to some places where I don't have anything going on, right? It's kind of mellow, and then all of a sudden you have a spike in activity. I do believe that spikes in activity can be related to what's going on inside of a location. I do believe this house I'm sitting in right now has something going on in it. The house was built in 1978. My understanding is from the neighbors in the area, no one's died here. But it doesn't explain
Mhm.
why I see an old man in pajamas in my house. It doesn't explain why I've got activity in the house randomly. I'm doing a lot of work in my house. I've taken out walls. I paint. I do all kinds of stuff in the house, right? I've done a lot of remodeling in here, and they say whenever you're remodeling or doing something and moving things around,
Right.
that spikes up the energy. Also, who knows what was here prior to this house being built here? So is there something left over residual from prior to 1978, prior to this house built, was there another house here? Someone died, and this guy don't know that this house is here, and that's why you're seeing ghosts walk through walls and not through doors, because maybe there was a door where the guy was walking through a wall.
Or maybe it's just the land. Maybe it's just
the land. Maybe it's just the land. I mean, I'm sure 100 or 150 years ago in this area I live in now was very rural. There was no Interstate 95 running through it. There was no Highway 524. You're familiar with these roads. You know the ones I'm talking about. There was no 520. There was no 524, right?
Right.
US 1. Those roads didn't exist. They were, if anything, they were probably dirt roads back at that time, right? So who knows who was here? Anything could have happened that we don't know.
And it's my personal opinion that oftentimes it has nothing to do with the building, but it's the land. And you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe just something is happening that they don't realize that new house was there at all. Now, what are your thoughts about, and you bring this interesting, a guy in pajamas that maybe shouldn't be there. Isn't it possible, do you think, that they just wander from place to place? Or do you think they stay where they die?
No, that's something I was wondering about. I was watching an episode of it's a Paranormal Mysteries. I knew it's so new, and that Dave Schrader's doing with Shane and Cindy Kaza. We were watching that last night, and that actually came up where ghosts don't stick around like we do. They get, like we get in the car and we go somewhere, or we go, get out of the house and go. Well, maybe they're doing the same thing. Is that possible? Sure. Why not? I don't have any reason to believe that it's not possible. So yeah, I do believe that they can travel. And here's even more to it. I mean, what's even more interesting, I mean, with the bazillion people that have died, and as long as we've been spinning around on this globe, right? Is it possible that we're bumping into people from different periods of time? I mean, when you pass, are you going to be able to bump into grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins from 100 and some odd years ago that you never met, but you might know?
Are you talking about time being on one level and not a progression? Are you talking about time and being in one level and not a progression? Is that where you're going with this?
It's yeah. I mean, why not? I mean, is it possible if a person passed in the 1850s? I mean, and they're wandering around, and here we are in 2025. I mean, why, if they were wandering around in 1850 after they died, how come they're not wandering around now? Is there I don't know, is there an expiration date on a ghost? I don't think so.
Or is it dimensions? I guess what I'm getting at here is, are these dimensions that are just crossing over? And is that the answer to this whole mystery?
It could be. It could be a space-time continuum. Maybe. Maybe.
So I guess
we talked a little bit about that. Yeah.
I guess this boils down to, John, we don't know what this phenomenon is, do we?
No.
And I get really concerned with folks that say they definitively know what this is, and we really don't know the answers yet.
No, we can gather as much evidence as we can gather, compare it to other evidence, and come up with the best possible, I don't know, synopsis of it that you can come up with. I mean, I don't think we're ever going to have on this physical earth with us physically. I don't think we're ever going to have that answer. I don't know if you're going to.
Why do we do it? Then why do we do it?
Sheer curiosity. We're humans, It's like, why do they climb the mountain, right? Because it's there. I just have this interest in it, and I think there's something to it. And if it can be explained, great. I just don't know if it actually can, because I don't have enough information to make, an informed decision definitively and say, oh yeah, we're going to figure this out. In the next 50 years, we'll have this all figured. I don't think so. I don't.
And I agree with you. So what's the future? Don't think so. Where do we go from here?
Keep on keeping on. It doesn't mean that I give up on it. I just keep, searching for the solution. I think you will get more information as time goes on. Maybe our equipment will get better, and we'll be able to gather more information, more evidence, and hopefully come up with something.
What do you think we need to do? What do you think we need to do to kind of get off this spot where we know it's happening, but we're not able to get this proof? We're not able to take that next step. What do we need to do in John Prink's opinion?
Oh, I don't know the answer to that question. I really don't, except to just keep investigating. Just get out there and put yourself out there, get vulnerable, and sit in that dark room and see if something's going to come to you. That's the thing, is like a lot of people, we see some of these TV shows, and a lot of people I've been on investigations with will want the experience, and then they get into it, and then experience is happening. The first thing they do is they run out. It's like, why did you do that? You wanted the experience. It's coming to you. Why are you running out? Stay there. What's the worst that's going to happen? If this person's not in this, you're going to, like me, the first time I freaked out when that little girl touched me, I freaked out because it was unnerving. It wasn't anything that I actually expected was going to happen to me. But in retrospect, looking back on it, it's just like, she was probably reaching out for help. If she was grabbing my hand, it would be like a little kid grabbing a father's hand, right? Or a little girl grabbing their father's hand. It's like, I don't think she was being malicious or bad. It was just something I wasn't used to. And it scared me. Honestly, I was just like, whoa, what is that? I'm not supposed to feel something from something I can't physically touch. It's not there. It's not tangible, but it touched me. It had enough energy that I felt it. So there was something there. And that's what I would like to find out. But here, that was 40 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. We haven't been able to figure it out. So, and I'm sure 40 years prior to that, somebody had the same experience and didn't have the equipment or the wherewithal or the interest, or, there were probably, I'm sure there were mediums and people did seances and that kind of stuff back then, but not to the extent of what we're doing it today. It's hit an apex almost. I mean, right? Just like you said, there was a little bit of a waning interest in it, but I think it's starting to come back. I don't think it's going to.
Why?
I think there were people out there who wanted more. When the shows are on, there's only a limited thing that you see. They're probably just hitting the highlights of what that was actually occurred.
And that's all TV. That's entertainment. That's not even really what we do.
Right. Yeah, it's probably like a quarter of what actually happens. Yeah, right. Sitting for endless hours inside of a dark room and nothing's happening. And the minute you get up, something happens, and then you're like, "Ooh!"
I've always equated it to a police stakeout, if you will. Yes.
Yep.
People
That's exactly
watch
what it is.
TV and movies. It's like full of excitement. Bang, bang, shoot them up. In reality, you'll sit there for hours upon hours and maybe get 30 seconds of excitement.
Right. But you add that 30 seconds to the myriad of other 30-second things that you have, and now you've got hours and hours and hours of, say, suspect footage, right? And that's something you can build a case upon and say, that's what's going to happen. We're going to take this to court, and hopefully we're going to get a conviction.
Exactly.
Building a case.
But to do that, we've got to collect our evidence. We've got to save our evidence.
Right.
We've got to share it too. And in our lab, we've only got about a minute left to go, but would you agree that sharing with other groups and other groups collaborating instead of keeping it all to ourselves, but sharing it and examining it together, do you think that's going to be the best way to solve this, just like we would do in police work?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. 100%. 100%. Give up what you have, because you don't know, because you might have gone into a building and one time you had a different experience than I had, but it doesn't mean that you won't have the same experience I had at another time. You might see something. There could be similarities, but sometimes you'll have a completely different experience as somebody else. I've had, numerous investigations I've gone on where somebody's told me they had something else happening, and I was like, no, that didn't happen to me. This happened. They were like, no, that didn't happen to me, but we collaborate and put it all together. Yeah.
But unfortunately, my friend, our time has come to an end. I really appreciate you being on the show. And folks, thank you for joining me for season 3 of Paranormal Stakeout. And we've got plenty more to come. So I hope you'll continue to join us. Thank you for being here. And we'll see you on the other side. Have a good night, folks.